Welcome back, everyone. We're going to be doing another budget-friendly recipe today. However, I received some comments that foraging did not go as well for everyone else as it did myself, so today we'll be shopping at the grocery store. Alright, so my first suggestion when you go budget-friendly shopping in the grocery store is to always go to the meat aisle first and see what's on sale. It's easier to build your dish around that, as the meat would probably be the most expensive part of the dish. Today I found beef shanks on sale for $1.99 a pound and decided I'm going to make Osso Buco. Now, as well as being budget friendly, I'm going to show you how you can kind of modify older recipes to fit your taste more, you know? You can make stuff however you want at home. And I know what you're thinking, but wait, Mr. Soup Ninja, Osso Buco is supposed to be made with veal shanks. Well, I'm kind of making a 2022 updated version of these recipes, and for me personally, I actually prefer the stronger beef flavor of beef. And the benefits of veal, it is more tender, however, it's going to be a braising dish, so we'll be able to adjust the tenderness of the beef however we want it in this recipe, as you'll see. Okay, so I have my 8 giant beef shanks here, and instead of the traditional way of searing them in the pan, I'm actually going to marinate them for overnight with canola oil, tomato paste, garlic powder, rosemary, salt, and cracked black pepper, and bake it in the oven to caramelize everything as high as the oven will go. It's not the traditional way, but I find this way works out better for braising dishes. Okay, so I marinated the beef shanks and I found a couple prime rib bones in my freezer, so I just threw them in too. They'll be delicious. It was marinated overnight and I'm going to bake it in the oven at 500 degrees. It is important to note that I left it outside for about 30 minutes to bring everything to room temperature so it caramelizes better in the oven. So I'm going to throw my shanks and prime rib bones into the oven at 500 degrees. It is worth noting that if you want maximum presentation, you can tie butcher's twine around the whole shank so that it stays intact, but it's just a casual Osso Buco recipe today, so I'm just going to do it without. While the meat's browning in the oven, we can go ahead and gather the other components for our dish. I've kind of separated them into different categories of what they'll do in the dish. So the garlic, onions, and carrots will all be pureed to make the sauce or gravy, along with the beef broth, passata tomatoes. I like my sauce a little more tomatoey in this dish. You can substitute the tomatoes for more beef stock if you'd like. And then we're just going to use some dry white wine to add body. The flavorings will be bay leaves, rosemary, and thyme. We're just going to use a little bit of rosemary. And as you can see, I shop at the Asian grocery store, so my herbs come saran wrapped. Looks good. And then after the sauce is pureed, I'm going to finish it off with some mushrooms and cannellini beans or white kidney beans, because that's just what I like to add texturally at the end when I make this. Okay, so I'm going to process my onions, garlic, and carrot. Usually I would dice these things up pretty small and saute them in oil, salt, and pepper to caramelize everything and enhance the flavor of the dish. But as you know, it's summer right now, which is the 4th best month for braising dishes, and I kind of like to make the dish a little bit lighter. So we're going to omit the oil, salt, and pepper, and just dice, or not even dice, just chop everything up large and add it to the braising pot. Okay, so I heavily caramelized and browned off my beef. I'm going to add, for about 8 pounds of beef, maybe like 9 pounds now, we'll say 9 pounds, I'm adding maybe 20 garlic cloves, 2 large white onions, and 1 very large carrot. Throw that all in the braising pan. Also gonna add like 8 bay leaves, sprig and a half of rosemary, and maybe like 20 of thyme. I'm also adding less than I think I'll probably want, because I can always add more when I taste the braising liquid. And we're going to throw in our beef stock. We're using our on sale Campbell's broth. Throw in our tomatoes. Gonna awkwardly fill this up with water and refill it. You just want to have enough liquid to cover everything completely. The amount of water doesn't really matter because we're gonna blend everything into the sauce later. I need a little bit more water. Alright, that should be enough to get everything down. I'm gonna add a little bit of white wine off camera and then take a picture after. Alright, and there we have it. I know it doesn't look like much now, but in 2.5 to 3 hours, I assure you it will be delicious. Alright, so the meat braised for about 2 hours 15 minutes at 375, and I'm going to test the texture of the meat, and feels tender, but another 30 minutes would definitely benefit it, and the same with the shanks. I'm going to take all the thick-stemmed herbs out and puree the sauce, and I'll show you what that looks like after this. So I took out all the meat and the non-edible herbs, and I'm gonna blend the liquid and the vegetables into a gravy. So I put all the meat back into the giant roasting pan. It's about 30 minutes off from the tenderness I want. I'm gonna add my chopped up mushrooms. I'll add the beans in about 15 minutes. They're pretty soft already. And then I'm just going to cover everything with the blended sauce. Okay, and then I'm going to throw it back in the oven for another 15 minutes, throw the beans in, and then 15 minutes after that should be done. Okay, so it's been about 2 hours and 45 minutes, and the prime rib bones are done. They're definitely fall off the bone, tender and shreddable. That's kind of how you want it. The shanks, the tendons haven't actually broken down as much as I thought they would, so they're probably taking their half hour. And then in 20 minutes, I'll finally add these cannellini beans, and then I'll show you the finished product. Okay, so it's been about 3 hours and a half. I'm gonna add my cannellini beans. This took a little bit longer than I was expecting, but it's gonna turn out well. I'm adding some, having boiled potatoes as my starch side today, but any neutral side will do. Rice, potatoes, boiled pasta, and then I'm just gonna bake it for another 15 minutes and we'll be done. Alright, so our Osso Buco is almost done and the house smells fantastic. I didn't mention at the start of the video that we didn't coat the meat in flour and sear it, so there's no thickening agent in the sauce. I was planning the whole time to actually thicken it with cornstarch, which will also make the dish gluten-free. And I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so I've taken out the meat for the last time. I'm going to add in my cornstarch slurry and thicken it up. I only have one free hand and I kind of got to do it now, so I'm going to do it off camera, but I'll show you what it looks like after. Okay, so the sauce or gravy is nice and thick now. Thickened with cornstarch, and I'm just going to add all the meat back one by one. And let it absorb some of the flavor before I serve it. And because there's so much flavor in the meat and sauce today, I'm just serving it with boiled potatoes, and I'm gonna boil some snow peas as neutral sides. That will help soak up the flavor of all the sauce. And yeah, that's the recipe. All right, I've got my completed dinner here. I'm gonna hunch down because it's hard to make camera angles apparently. I've got my very flavorful Osso Buco and the boiled potato and boiled snow peas to soak up all the flavor. And as you can see, everything's supremely fork tender. You can just rip everything apart. Very tender. And pretty delicious, honestly. Alright, yep. That's my budget-friendly, but actually this time, Osso Buco. The total food cost per serving came out to be about $3 per serving, and they are pretty big servings, which is pretty budget friendly considering today's prices. Anyways, are there any closing words anyone wants to say?
Like and subscribe to Soup Ninja!